Venezuela. He left and came to the United States as a student back in 2016.
Yeah. Daniel DiMartino recently wrote an article in USA Today, and in it he described the living conditions in Venezuela, how socialism destroyed his home, and he is with us this morning. Daniel, thank you for being here. Your story is so fascinating, and we're going to get to that in just a second. I want to ask you, though, since we're just coming out of those images, what is your reaction to what you have seen in the last 24, 48 hours there in Venezuela? And do you still have family there? Are they okay?
Maduro has shown in the last 24 hours that he's willing to starve his people, to starve my people, to cling in power. And this has just shown and proven the theory that most Venezuelans had, that this regime will only get out of power with force, the use of international force.
Are you suggesting U.S. military force? Is that what you'd like to see here?
I am suggesting that President Guaidó, on Monday, when he meets with Vice President Mike Pence and with all Latin American leaders, he needs to call for an international intervention led by Colombia and Brazil, and that the United States must support worldwide diplomatically and rally all the region around this purpose. Because, look, Dave and Christy, there is no other way out. 300,000 children are going to die in Venezuela if we don't do this, of starvation. 30,000 people are being murdered. This is a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions.
Daniel, help us understand what it was like for you growing up in Venezuela, for you and your family.
Well, my childhood, when I was little, it was definitely much better than now. I did have what I needed, but as time progressed, starting in around 2010, when I have some memories when I was 11 years old, as well as a little earlier, you could see shortages of food, especially milk, toilet paper. By the time I left Venezuela, we didn't have electricity at least once a week. Water sometimes went out for weeks long. And I was privileged, let me tell you, because I know people who lived in the rural areas instead of the city, Caracas, where I lived, and they sometimes didn't have electricity for weeks. Now people are starving because they don't have even basic food.
And that is why. I mean, help people understand why that is under that socialist society.
That's exactly right. So the reason for this is that the regime took away most private businesses. They started expropriating land with the excuse that it was being accumulated under a few wealthy people in Venezuela, when this was just a lie. Most land was owned by middle class, by just farmers who wanted to produce and create wealth for themselves as well. And at the end, the regime closed our borders, just like they're doing right now with the humanitarian aid, and destroyed our private industry. By destroying our private industry with nationalization and price controls, there's just nothing left to eat.
Hard to believe, given Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world and has adequate water reserves as well. But I want to ask you about something else you wrote on this USA Today column, and that's kind of a word of warning to U.S. political leaders. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, as some of the movement, the shift toward socialist democratic policies here in the United States. How would you warn voters here in this country?
Look, there is no further proof of my argument than Bernie Sanders' statements a few days ago, when he refused to say that Nicolas Maduro was a dictator, and he refused to recognize Juan Guaidó as the president of Venezuela, something that even Speaker Nancy Pelosi and other Democrats have done. This is really dangerous, and Democratic primary voters really need to push out these radical Democrats from their party, because not all Democrats are that way. And I really urge bipartisan compromise on this issue, because if we continue Venezuela with socialism, and if we push very radical socialist policies in the United States might get closer to what we're seeing right now in Venezuela.
Now, just to be clear, not either AOC nor Bernie Sanders is pushing for a Venezuelan style of socialism. They want the Green New Deal. They want Medicare for all. But you're just saying that is perhaps a path down that road. But it's great to have your perspective. Daniel DiMartino, thanks so much. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Daniel.